2 days ago, the president's son went on live television, looked straight into the camera, and called the entire banking system a Ponzi scheme. Not some random conspiracy theorist on Twitter, not a fringe blogger. The son of the sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump Jr., at an event called the World Liberty Forum, held inside Mar-a-Lago, broadcast on CNBC, with the CEO of Goldman Sachs sitting 10 feet away. And here is the part nobody is talking about. The same family that just called banking a Ponzi scheme is actively applying for a federal bank charter. They want to start their own bank. Let that sink in for a moment. But this story goes so much deeper than a controversial soundbite. Because buried underneath this headline is what I believe is the single biggest financial scandal of 2026. One that involves a $500 million secret deal in Abu Dhabi royal nicknamed the Spy Sheikh. Advanced AI chips that were supposed to be blocked from the Middle East, a stablecoin called USD1 that facilitated a $2 billion Binance investment and a presidential pardon of the man who founded that very exchange. And when you connect all of these dots, you start to understand exactly why gold just hit $5,000 an ounce, why silver went from $30 to $80 in 12 months, and why the entire global financial system is undergoing a trust crisis that has no modern precedent. This is Money and Empires. Let us connect the dots. To understand what is really happening, we need to go back to January 2025, 4 days before Donald Trump's second inauguration. On that day, according to a Wall Street Journal investigation published just 3 weeks ago, 2 lieutenants to Sheikh Tahnoon bin Zayed Al Nahyan, a member of the Abu Dhabi royal family and the United Arab Emirates National Security Advisor, secretly signed a deal to purchase 49% of World Liberty Financial for $500 million. Now, Sheikh Tahnoon is not just any investor. Western intelligence agencies have nicknamed him the Spy Sheikh. He is one of the most powerful figures in the Middle East, simultaneously running the UAE's largest sovereign wealth fund, overseeing its national security apparatus, and controlling a major artificial intelligence company called G42. The deal was signed by Eric Trump, the president's son. According to the documents obtained by the Wall Street Journal, $187 million was directed to Trump family entities. At least $31 million went to entities connected to the family of Steve Witkoff, who just weeks earlier had been named as Trump's Middle East envoy. This deal was not disclosed to the public. There was no announcement, no press release. The world only found out about it 3 weeks ago. Now here is where it gets explosive. 4 months after the Spy Sheikh poured $500 million into the Trump family's crypto company, the Trump administration approved the sale of 500,000 advanced NVIDIA AI chips to the United Arab Emirates per year. These are the most advanced semiconductors America produces. The Biden administration had specifically blocked this sale over fears that the UAE would share the technology with China. Senator Elizabeth Warren called it corruption, plain and simple. The ranking member of the Senate Banking Committee said this was the biggest bribery scandal since Teapot Dome, referring to the infamous 1920s scandal, where an Interior Secretary secretly leased federal oil reserves to private companies in exchange for bribes. A formal congressional investigation was launched on February 5th. Representative Ro Khanna demanded all ownership records, payment details, and internal communications from World Liberty Financial. The deadline is March 1st, which is just 9 days from now, but the scandal does not stop there. The Spy Sheikh stablecoin connection runs even deeper. World Liberty Financial created a dollar-pegged stablecoin called USD1. This stablecoin was used to settle a $2 billion investment by MGX, an Abu Dhabi investment fund also chaired by Sheikh Tahnoon, into Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. Binance, whose founder Changpeng Zhao was pardoned by President Trump. So let me lay out the chain. The Spy Sheikh invests $500 million into the Trump family crypto company. That company's stablecoin facilitates a $2 billion investment into Binance. Trump pardons the Binance founder. And then the Trump administration approves the AI chip sale the Sheikh wanted. And now, the same company is applying for a federal bank charter with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is part of the Treasury Department, which is run by Trump appointees. This is not a partisan issue. This is a structural trust issue. And it is exactly why capital is fleeing into gold and silver at a pace we have not seen since the 1970s. If you are watching this and realizing this is the kind of analysis you do not get from mainstream financial media, make sure you subscribe. We cover the stories behind the stories on this channel. Now, here's the ironic part. When Donald Trump Jr. called banking a Ponzi scheme, was he actually wrong? Let us think about this seriously for a moment, because this is important. In a traditional Ponzi scheme, there are 3 characteristics. First, existing participants are paid with money from new participants. Second, the scheme requires continuous growth to survive. And third, if everyone tries to withdraw at the same time, the system collapses because the money is not there. Now consider the modern banking system. Under fractional reserve banking, when you deposit $100, the bank is only required to keep a small fraction in reserve. The rest gets lent out. That loan becomes someone else's deposit, which gets lent out again and again. This process, called the money multiplier, means that for every real dollar in the system, roughly $10 exist as digital entries on a balance sheet. Is that a Ponzi scheme? Not technically, because unlike a Ponzi, the banking system creates productive credit that funds businesses, homes, and infrastructure. It serves a real economic function. But here's the problem. The United States national debt just crossed $38 trillion. That number is almost incomprehensible. To put it in perspective, if you stacked 38 trillion $1 bills, the pile would reach past the moon. And the annual interest on that debt now exceeds what the government spends on national defense. The Federal Reserve, the institution that is supposed to be the independent guardian of monetary stability, is under direct political assault. In January, the Department of Justice subpoenaed Fed Chairman Jerome Powell over the cost of a building renovation. Powell, in an extraordinary public rebuke, called it a pretext designed to pressure the Fed into cutting rates faster. Then, on January 30th, Trump nominated Kevin Warsh to replace Powell as Fed chair when his term ends in May. Warsh himself has called for what he described as regime change at the Fed. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court is deciding whether Trump can fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook. If the answer is yes, the precedent would effectively end Federal Reserve independence as we have known it for over a century. And this is exactly the point. When the son of the president calls banking a Ponzi scheme, while simultaneously building a stablecoin empire that operates outside traditional banking, and the Federal Reserve's independence is under existential threat, and the national debt is spiraling past any ability to repay, what do smart money investors do? They buy the one asset that has no counterparty risk, the one asset that is not someone else's liability, the one asset that requires no trust in any government, any central bank, or any politician. They buy gold. And the numbers tell the story better than any analyst could. Gold has surged from $2,300 to over $5,000 in just 12 months. That is more than a 100% gain. Silver has been even more dramatic, rising from $30 to roughly $80, a gain of nearly 300% in the same period. But the most important signal is not the price. It is who is buying. Central banks around the world have been purchasing gold at a record pace. According to the World Gold Council, central banks bought over 1,000 tons of gold in both 2023 and 2024. And the pace has only accelerated in 2025 and into 2026. China has been the most aggressive buyer, but Turkey, India, Singapore, and Poland have all been major accumulators. Why? Because they are watching the same things we are watching. The weaponization of the dollar through sanctions. The freezing of Russia's $300 billion in reserves after the Ukraine invasion. The political pressure on the Federal Reserve. The $38 trillion debt, the spy Sheikh deals, the erosion of institutional trust. JP Morgan now projects gold reaching $6,300 by the end of 2026. Bank of America has a target of $6,000. Goldman Sachs lifted its forecast to $5,400. And here is the data point that should terrify anyone who thinks this rally is over. The dollar's share of global reserves has fallen from 73% in 2001 to approximately 54% today. That is a decline of nearly 20 percentage points in 2 decades. And the pace is accelerating. As Diego Franzen, head of portfolio strategies at Plenisphere Investments, told Al Jazeera recently, in a world where almost every financial activity involves credit risk from a state, a central bank, or an intermediary, gold remains the only asset without a counterparty. It makes no promises. It pays no interest. It simply exists. And that is precisely why it provides security. For silver, the story is even more compelling. The Silver Institute projects a 6th consecutive year of market deficit in 2026. Physical investment demand is forecast to rise 20% to 227 million ounces. Meanwhile, industrial demand from solar panels, electric vehicles, AI data centers, and 5G infrastructure continues to grow far faster than mine production can respond. Silver hit $121 in January before crashing 30% in a single day, the worst drop since 1980. But here is what mainstream media will not tell you. The crash was mechanical, driven by margin hikes from the CME group, not by any change in fundamentals. The physical shortage is getting worse, not better. COMEX registered silver inventory has fallen 75% since 2020. The crash shook out the leveraged speculators. It did not solve the supply crisis. I have covered the COMEX silver situation in extensive detail on this channel. If you want to understand why physical silver is disappearing from exchange vaults, check out the COMEX Silver Vault Crisis playlist. The link is in the description. So, where does all of this lead? Let me give you 3 things to watch in the next 30 days. Number 1, March 1st. That is the deadline for World Liberty Financial to hand over its ownership records, payment documents, and internal communications to Congress. If those documents confirm what the Wall Street Journal reported, that hundreds of millions flowed to the president's family in exchange for favorable policy decisions, the political fallout will be enormous. Watch for market volatility around this date. Number 2, the bank charter decision. World Liberty Financial, as application for a federal bank charter, sits with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which operates under the Treasury Department. If approved, Trump's family would effectively control a federally regulated bank that issues its own stablecoin. A banking professor at Georgia State University called it a chilling dynamic where the president's business enterprises are regulated by his own administration. Number 3, the Fed transition. Kevin Warsh's confirmation hearing will likely happen in the spring. Jerome Powell's term as chair ends May 15th. The question of whether Powell stays on as a governor through 2028 to defend Fed independence or steps down entirely will send shockwaves through gold and silver markets either way. Here's the bottom line. When the president's son calls banking a Ponzi scheme at Mar-a-Lago, and the Goldman Sachs CEO nods along from the front row, and a $500 million deal with a foreign intelligence chief goes undisclosed until a journalist uncovers it, and the institution designed to protect the value of your money faces the most serious threat to its independence in a century, the message from the market is clear. Gold is not rising because of speculation. Gold is rising because trust is collapsing. In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt confiscated gold because the government needed to rebuild trust in the financial system. In 1971, Nixon closed the gold window because trust in the dollar's convertibility had eroded. And in 2026, gold is hitting $5,000 because trust in the institutions that manage the global financial system is eroding in real time, from Washington to Wall Street to the Middle East. The president's son may have been trying to sell you a stablecoin, but he accidentally told you the truth. The system runs on trust, and the trust is running out. This is Money and Empires. I will see you in the next one.